Hello out there, it's Mrs. Teal, and in this video I'm going to show you how to draw bubbles using colored pencils. Right now in March of 2020, we are in the middle of a global pandemic. The coronavirus is spreading everywhere, and so we are washing our hands and we are seeing a lot of soap bubbles. I don't know about you, but I'm also trying to get outside, and my daughter has been blowing bubbles a lot and drawing a lot, which is what inspired this video here. You can see a drawing she did of bubbles below. Now, my daughter is only in kindergarten right now, so let me tell you, this video is intended for people of any age, ages kindergarten all the way through adults. Anyone truly can draw a bubble, as long as you have a rainbow of colored pencils and black or toned paper to work on. In addition, you will need a variety of circular household objects to trace. A soap dispenser, can of Lysol, or even the inside and outside of a roll of toilet paper would work really well for this because you do want your circles to be different sizes. Consider actually having at least one of your circles overlap another as well. Now, before you start adding color, I want to highly suggest that you first find some good reference photos of bubbles to look at. You also could take your own pictures if you want to make real bubbles, but it really helps to look at a bubble and to carefully observe the colors you see and where you see them located. Notice how all of the colors in the bubbles curve in circles or semicircles. Because of this, it helps to first draw or trace a smaller circle inside each bubble as a reminder that as you're adding color to the area between your small circle and the outside edge, you want these colors to be curving around the bubble's form. To begin adding color, begin with a sharpened white colored pencil and outline your bubbles with white, making some areas whiter than others. If you look at the photographs of the bubbles, you can see that there's not a strong, solid outline of any one color around the entire bubble. Instead, the edge appears to be more of a broken line, with some areas stronger than others. Next, add your brightest highlights on opposite sides of the bubble. Again, look at the pictures. You can see that there's a strong highlight on both sides. They can be diagonally across from each other. You can have one highlight on each side or two. You can see that I'm doing two, one being closer to the very edge of the bubble and the other one near the line I drew inside of the bubble. Keep in mind, you can and should add more white highlights later, but I think now it's a good time to start adding the fun part, which is color. You are going to want to add a variety of colors in your bubbles. As you can see from the photographs, there are many colors included. At minimum, use pink, blue, and yellow. These three colors will also mix together and create some other varieties of colors as well. The key to applying color in your bubbles is to place the color on opposing sides, which means that wherever you place pink, you're going to then place more pink on that opposite side of the bubble as well. Wherever I place yellow, I'm going to then place some yellow on the opposite side of the bubble too. And as you add color, you're going to want to apply it in semicircle motions, mostly in the area between the outside edge of the bubble and that smaller circle you drew inside. Keep the majority of the center of your bubble black, and you can add some little dots of color for more reflections and highlights as you go at any time. You can also add flare lines to your brightest highlights using white. You can see how I picked those two main bright highlights that I drew first, and I just dragged out some quick short lines, almost like a snowflake or starburst from those highlights. Finally, you can try adding some darker colors like dark green and blue for depth and color variation. You can see that there's no right or wrong way to apply these colors. In some ways, I am just looking for areas that feel a little bit empty. I'm not copying from any one bubble on my reference sheet. In fact, I'm looking at all of them together and I'm just looking for ideas that I could apply from the reference photograph into my bubble drawing. And lastly, when you think you're finished adding color, it's always a good idea to clean up your edges and make that outer edge of your bubble super crystal clear. Maybe even take an eraser and erase any smudges, or apply a little extra black colored pencil to just darken some of those really dark areas in the center. Now let's do another bubble. This time I'm only going to use a few colors of colored pencil to limit my palette. This could also be a great review for you. Okay, so first I'm going to begin again with white, outlining my bubble, but making the line a little bit broken, not worrying about all parts of the outline being the same amount of brightness. And then I'm going to add in my brightest highlights. So I'm making those bright highlights opposite each other, and this time I'm throwing in some more little small highlights too. Then beginning with pink, I'm adding some pink on opposite sides of the bubble. And I can put some of the pink on top of white as well to make a lighter pink color. Now using blue, I'm putting the blue on opposite sides of the bubble and adding green on opposite sides of the bubble. Notice how I'm staying between the outer edge and the inner circle so that I'm leaving the very center of the circle the darkest black. I'm rotating through all of my colors, just trying to add some color where I feel it could be helpful, and also trying to balance it from side to side. I go back in and add a few extra dots for highlights and add a little bit of flair. And lastly, I check over my work. I even things out, do a little bit of blending, and clean up my edges before moving on to my final bubbles. My last two bubbles are overlapping, which is going to make for a really interesting drawing. So I'm doing all of the steps in the same order, in the same way, beginning with the outline, adding in the brightest highlights, and then rotating through all of my colors, placing them on opposing sides. I try to leave the majority of the center of the bubble dark, but I do add highlights in different colors all throughout the whole bubble. I add some flair at the end, clean up my edges, and that is it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I sincerely hope that during this uncertain time, you take some moments for yourself to just create something.